November 2nd, 2016 was much like any normal day. It was a good 62 degrees out, and Sherri went to go leave her two children at daycare. Keith goes to work, and when he comes back, he doesn't see his wife at home. And he also doesn't see his kids. So he calls the daycare to see maybe if she went on a side quest with them. But the daycare says that Sherri hasn't picked up the kids yet. So he looks at his Find My iPhone app to figure out where she is. And it pings her cell phone location on Old Oregon Trail and Sunrise Drive. He only was able to find her cell phone, her earbuds, and strands of her hair. I mean, if I was her husband, I'd be freaking out. Where's my wife? So he calls 911 and a manhunt begins. Have you ever gone to a movie thinking you know what's going to happen and you totally get blindsided by the ending? This case is much like that. Welcome to Crime Thread, where every case has a thread worth following. I'm Paula Tez, and this case has me frustrated on all levels. This case fooled the entire country, and the truth was something that I was not expecting. So, grab a drink, settle in, and let's follow the thread. The authorities put out a reward for $50,000. And the whole town came together to put up flyers, to go on search parties. If they weren't putting up flyers, they were making posters for that. Bring her home, Keith would say on news interviews. Police dogs were out also searching for her, and a lot of additional resources were used from the Reading Police Department and the U.S. Department of Justice. I mean, the FBI stepped in to come look for her. This case got so much media attention. And yes, the fact that she was white, blonde, and attractive sparked a lot of controversy about how we handle missing persons cases. Some cases get more attention than others, unfortunately, and this is one of them. But I digress. About $47,000 was donated to a GoFundMe account called Bring Sherri Home Safe to aid in her search. 22 days later, on Thanksgiving morning, and this was like super early, the sun was not up yet, but she was found 150 miles away from home. She weighed 87 pounds, had bruises all over her body and burn marks. She had a broken nose. A chain was wrapped around her waist. There was zip tie marks on her wrist, and a Bible verse was branded on her shoulder. Now, the public didn't know that just yet. It was just the police that knew that. And her hair was chopped off. The relief the whole community felt was immense. I mean, your neighbor, your best friend was back home. How amazing. But what happened? In her initial interview, she said that she was taken while she was running, but that she didn't know where she went or what car she got into because they wrapped something around her head. She said that she was taken by two Hispanic women, and she remembers the smell of the car. She said it smelled like sewage, which is kind of funny to add in there. She said that she was chained to a pole in a closet in a room that she was held in, and she was given a bucket filled with kitty litter to use as a bathroom. She said the women would play that annoying Mexican music. These are her words, not mine, okay? I was annoyed when I heard that, honestly. Not annoyed, I was pissed off. Like, how are you in life-threatening fear for your life, and that is the word, the adjective that you decide to use? I don't know. That isn't what would come to my mind. But I digress again. Oh, and that she was given a tortilla and rice once a day, and that's why she was so skinny. I want to add that the police thought that it was a little odd because during this interview, she was giggly and a little flirty, which is really strange for a kidnapped victim because you just got kidnapped, so that's not the reaction people usually have when coming back home. The year between 2016 and 2022, $30,000 was given to the Papinis from the California Victim Compensation Board, which is a taxpayer-funded organization. It assists and reimburses victims of violent crimes for crime-related expenses that they suffer. So, for example, like therapies and such. The media went crazy looking for these two Hispanic women. This caused so much tension and harm in their community. Advocates from organizations like the Northern Hispanic Latino Coalition and MALDEF spoke out, pointing out that Papini's fabrication really relied on outdated and harmful tropes about Mexican women. The FBI noticed all these red flags in Papini's story, like the way her headphones were coiled on her phone. If you were getting kidnapped, a person wouldn't just neatly place their phone down on the floor in the way that it was found. I mean, I would have thrown it. I would have tossed it. Or I would have tried keeping it, actually. And I'm sure the kidnappers probably would have taken it from you and probably discarded it somewhere, but it's not something that is just found placed on top of grass, if that makes sense. Also, there was no cracks on the screen. And when I tell you, last week I cracked my phone just from closing the door, and it landed straight down on its face and the whole thing shattered. Again, that was an accidental fall. If you were getting kidnapped and you threw that thing, it would have had some sort of damage to the phone, and there was none. And side note, it's really odd that she pulled out pieces of her hair to really fake it. To me, that's just a strange behavior. Another red flag was that she would remember small details like the coffee table that was in the home, but not the vehicle type that she was taken in. And as time goes on, FBI agents usually see victims of kidnapping eventually remember certain details that are really important to the case. But Papini never got to that point in her therapy sessions where she was able to recall what happened. Interviews were conducted of her friends and family, and they all said that sometimes she would do that. She would leave and come back and wouldn't say anything about it, and that she liked to exaggerate the truth. According to FBI agent Denise Farmer, kidnappers genuinely don't cover their faces unless it's an immediate return, but this was considered a long-term kidnapping, and it did not fit the profile. Generally, females don't kidnap. Also, men's phone numbers were saved under women's names in Papini's phone, and it was starting to paint a picture that she was mentally checking out of her marriage. DNA was found in the underwear that she was wearing that night. And it wasn't from a woman. It wasn't from her husband. It was from a man. She did not mention a male suspect in any of her story. There's something I do want to add. I feel that if you are around women and you come back with no DNA on you, I mean, my hair falls out a lot. You would have a strand of my hair on yourself. Like she said in her report that she was getting beat up by these women. You would at least have some sort of skin DNA on you or something. You would have had something under your fingernails if you were really getting beat up, as she said she was. But there was no female DNA found on her clothing or her person. The FBI was not able to find a match for the convicted males in their database or CODIS that matched the DNA that they had. But in 2022, technology was a bit more advanced, and they were able to create a family tree using the strand of DNA. And they were able to eventually match it up to this guy named James Reyes. And it was her ex. Yes, her ex-boyfriend. FBI goes and visit James Reyes at his home, and they ask him a ton of questions. And for a good hour, he's just lying through his teeth. But eventually he figures the gig is up. He says he was helping a friend in need, so he went to go pick her up. He said that she made him go to a craft store, and I believe it was Hobby Lobby, to go for letters for wood branding. And he can't remember exactly what the letters were, but he had to brand her on her right side of her shoulder. Now, remember, this was not public knowledge, and the police immediately knew this guy was telling the truth. He also had burner phones with GPS tracking location, so they were able to see where he picked her up. And it showed that they had prior conversations on the burner phones, which meant that this was a planned thing. He admitted that she had asked him to help her stage the abduction and inflicted injuries on her. This evidence debunked her claims that she had been kidnapped by 2 Hispanic women. And what did Sherri say? Sherri stated that this never happened, that she was kidnapped, but that she didn't think it was her ex-boyfriend because he, quote-unquote, loved her. Her story changed later, and then she said that her ex-boyfriend did kidnap her and that he sexually assaulted her, which James Reyes denies that this ever happened, and there's really no proof of it. So, on April 12, 2022, Papini was charged with 34 counts of mail fraud and 1 count of making false statements. On April 18, 2022, Papini pleaded guilty to a single count of mail fraud and one count of making false statements. Papini was ordered to pay about $310,000 in restitution for losses incurred by the California Victim Compensation Board, the Social Security Administration, the Shasta County Sheriff's Office, and the FBI. Because at the time, there was this one big human trafficking case that they were working on that they don't disclose, that there was actual suspects and people that they were going to question, and they were putting their attention and resources into this case. But because of Sherri Papini's lies, they had to shift their attention to her and her missing persons case, which wasted a lot of resources. To me, that's just crazy. So she was sentenced for 18 months in prison to be followed by 36 months of supervised release for making merely false statements to the FBI agents about the circumstances of her own kidnapping and committing mail fraud based on her being a kidnapping victim. That was a mouthful. But pretty much, they were asking for half of that in her sentencing, and the judge gave her double that. While in prison, Keith filed for divorce and gained full custody of her children. Now, I can't get too much into the divorce filings and the custody battle, but pretty much the court felt, and so did CPS, that her children were being poisoned by her. Now, Sherri has a different side of the story where she says that she couldn't put Vicks on them because it irritated their senses, but instead she figured that she would put a little wad of tissue paper with alcohol and put it around their necks in a baggie. I don't know if any parents are in the comments that do this, please let me know. But whatever the case may be about child services and him gaining custody over his children, honestly good, because again, she's a convicted liar, legit convicted liar. And I don't think I would feel safe with my children being with somebody like that. So whether it was poisoning or not, I'm glad he got full custody. So this wasn't just a hoax, it damaged the community. Everyone's time is important, right? But when you dedicate your time right after work, you're exhausted, and you go make flyers because you really care about this person in your community, you search for them hours and hours for those 22 days in a month that is supposed to be for family, and it's Thanksgiving month, right? I want to be home around that time. If I'm taking my time out to go look for a person just to find out that they were lying, that's crazy to me. She wasted federal resources and it fueled harmful stereotypes for the Latino community. Again, she makes me so mad. She pisses me off with that. But anyways, I ask you guys, do you believe her story about being kidnapped, or do you feel like she was trying to leave her husband and she felt this was the best way to do it? Leave a comment down below with your opinion, and if you like this sort of content, subscribe so you can stay up to date on the latest episode. Stay safe, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.